Environmentalists across countries were already concerned about Donald Trump's successful run for the US presidency last year. But his latest announcement to withdraw from the 2015 Paris Agreement on the day of his inauguration has confirmed their worst fears. There's disappointment, but hardly any surprise. The 47th President of the United States has been a climate change denier. He wrote his electoral campaign on Drill Baby Drill, in the world's biggest historical emitter of carbon dioxide and exporter of gas and oil. Even as their burning continues to fuel a record spike in global temperatures, making the extreme weather events more severe than ever before. Remember the Los Angeles wildfires? Noted environmentalist Ms. Sunita Narayan highlighted how the US, even under Joe Biden, produced and exported more oil and gas than any country in the history of the world. 13.5 million barrels of oil a day. In an interview to CNN News 18 earlier, she spoke about how the US has not yet shown leadership at the global level when it comes to financing the most vulnerable countries for decarbonization. The $100 billion goal set in 2009 was never fulfilled except once in 2022. But on Monday, Mr. Trump confirmed the worst fears that his second term could be a setback for global cooperation on climate action. Avantika Goswami from Center for Science and Environment points out that Donald Trump returns to the US political leadership at a time when climate impacts are escalating. The chaos and uncertainty of his actions will hurt the US decarbonization as well as the obligations it has to the rest of the world. So what is this Paris Climate Agreement that we are talking about? The 2015 Paris Agreement that Donald Trump has pulled out of is one of the most important UN climate action deals signed in 2015. Under this, countries committed to limit global warming to below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and pursue efforts to limit the increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The target is dire, especially after 2024 ended as the hottest year on record with an annual warming of 1.55 degrees Celsius. But do you know that during this period, the US also became the world's largest oil and gas producer globally, hitting new oil production highs under the Joe Biden administration. So what next? It's not the first time that Donald Trump has withdrawn from the Paris Treaty. Mr. Manjeev Singh Puri, Distinguished Fellow from TERI, reminds us how President Trump withdrew the US from the Paris Agreement even in 2017, though it was later reversed by next President Joe Biden in 2021. So the US exit from the agreement cannot be immediate, as the formal process for withdrawal takes time, even a year. But there are other concerns. He says, and I quote, "The President and his nominee for Secretary of Energy have expressed a certain skepticism on wind power while being positive on drilling of hydrocarbons. There are also concerns over Trump's potential repeal of major provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, which targets at least a 40% reduction in carbon emissions by 2030 through a slew of measures to promote cleaner energy, clean vehicles, and manufacturing in the US. Clearly, Trump's return does signal uncertain times for global climate action and has implications for poor and developing countries which have contributed the least to global emissions but continue to bear its brunt. Developed countries have already left the global south disappointed last year with a meager climate finance deal in Baku. The extreme weather events are increasing in intensity, frequency, and scale at alarming rates worldwide, and the devastation is more evident than ever. The developed countries are required to lead the transition away from fossil fuels as agreed to as COP28 and push for renewable energy. It's not only important for the health of their own citizens, but also for the collective fight against climate change. The world certainly cannot give up its fight against climate change. The policy experts I spoke to highlight that the other nations must lead and must continue to lead and ensure that global climate action does not slow down in this critical decade.